award-winning podcast. I want to welcome our author, Colleen Winter. Colleen is an electrical engineer, which is very cool, and a former freelance journalist, and her stories have one foot in each of these worlds. When she isn't writing, she spends much of her time climbing and hiking with her family and an assortment of dogs. I can get behind that. Got a couple myself. She was shortlisted for the 2020 Rakuten Kobo Emerging Writer Prize in Speculative Fiction, received two Writers Reserve grants from the Ontario Arts Council, won the Best First Sentence contest at Thriller Fest 2018, won the Leacock Simcoe Erotic Prose Contest, received an SLS fellowship from the Unified Literary Contest, and is an alumni of the Humber School of Writers. She is the past president of the writers community of Simcoe County and is currently an organizer of Voices at Word Up Bar.
Very.
Very. So Colleen is kind enough to join us today to discuss both her experience as an author and her novels in the Gatherer series. And we'll talk about her newest sci-fi thriller. Am I also right?
Yep, yep.
Disentangled. And I'll tease everyone with a quick description. When the oneness trial begins that promises enlightenment through brain implants, the reclusive Jasper Lavoie must come out of hiding and stop it before the participants' minds are changed forever. I love this. Can we pause on that for a moment? Have
Absolutely.
you seen Pluribus?
I
The
have not, but it's on my list. Yes.
And I think you're probably going to get a more rich experience through your novel, but as a series, it is quite interesting. And so maybe timely. Maybe people are thinking about this a little bit.
I think absolutely it's very timely. There seems to be this growing kind of awareness about, quantum reality and consciousness and how that all connects. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's going to be in this novel. We're going to get it full force, get I touch on it a little bit philosophically, and then also in detail.
Yeah, that's sort of the plan. That's why I wanted to go. Like, I mean, we'll talk about this more, but a lot of my books are about technology gone wrong. And so I'm sort of talking about, uh, essentially the oneness idea is that people can just reach enlightenment through a brain implant. There's no self-awareness, there's no meditation, there's no work required. They just get
Forget
launched
it.
into, yeah, they just get launched into enlightenment. So of course things go wrong.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to explore, one, why that would appeal to people and what it means and whether or not we could even cope with that, like our brains can even cope with that. So there's so much to unpack with the
This.
story.
Yeah. And I want to save some of this so that, people can enjoy it as they read it, since it's a new novel. But I'm assuming some things break down socially between people. And then is it compulsory as well?
Well, what it is it's actually a clinical trial. So the whole book centers around these 12 individuals who are part of the first trial where you can have the implant inserted. And it's actually a reality show. So then the public can follow along as they experience these implants and what their experiences are. And it's very much just exploring what would happen and all the different scenarios. And I've got 12 different people who have all tried to achieve enlightenment or oneness in very different ways. So there's
Oh,
a mountain climber, there's a yoga instructor, there's a free diver, I think it's called. Yeah. And then there's, a tantric sex person, and then anyways, and an opera singer. So anyways, there's all these people who have sort of reached spirituality in very different ways, who have all come together into
yeah.
this trial. And so I'm kind of exploring different ways people try and find meaning, essentially, was what it comes
Yeah.
down to.
I like this because they can give the reader context, right? A context that we're more rooted in, right? If they're a yoga instructor and we've done that, we can understand trying to better ourselves and get more in touch with our own
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
thoughts, feelings, and consciousness. Does it
Yeah.
shift perspectives?
No, it's one person,
Okay.
one POV.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny because I had actually I struggled with that at the beginning, whether or not it was
Yeah,
going
I
to be
wondered.
multiple points of view or
Yeah,
whether it was going
yeah.
to be one. But right now it's one, but you never know what might happen. But yeah.
Sometimes with one perspective, though, you get that like heightened anxiety and tension that happens because you're locked in their POV, which is nice, right?
Yeah, yes. And this main character there's very much a reason why she's the main character, which I'm not going to give away
Oh,
here,
yeah.
but
Let us,
yeah.
yeah.
So it is nice. We're essentially following her journal and her journey and her relationship with with the whole trial that's going on.
I like this. It's very cool. Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
repeat the name. It's Disentangled, but is this a working title?
Yeah, that's working title for now. It may change. But it just doesn't roll off the tongue that well. I don't
I
disentangle.
kind of like it. I'll just I'll just put that out there. I like
Okay.
it. I think it does have a little bit because it doesn't roll off the tongue, it causes you to pause a little bit,
That's
which
true,
is
actually.
really a bad thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, and more as I start, I'm getting closer to publishing it. I'm using it more, right? So then I'm starting
Oh,
to sort of get
yeah.
used to it and maybe
Yeah.
like it a bit more. So yeah, we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah. And then maybe you must be attached to it in some way that yeah.
Yeah, that it sort of came out I've been calling it that for, quite a while at this point. So yeah.
Well, I want to shift a little bit to the Gatherer series if we can, but I do want to circle back to your electrical engineering background, which I think is so fascinating and makes sense for the Gatherer. And it sounds as though it also makes sense for Disentangled as well.
Well, that's a good point. I never thought of that for disentangled, but
Not as
yeah,
much, but still you have that. I mean, there is applied with electrical engineering. It's such a practical thing, but you still had to study in such a way that you had to think about possibility, right?
yes, absolutely. And about energy, right? Because ultimately it's all about energy. So yeah, there's definitely that element of the energy within the quantum reality too within disentangled.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's circle back to that.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Gatherer series. So one thing I really, really enjoy about it is your ability to world build and set scenes while still keeping the action flowing quite tightly like it would in a thriller. And I think that, having, read enough sci-fi in addition to thrillers, I definitely read more thrillers than I do sci-fi. But yeah, the pacing is just, it's fantastic. So I just wanted to ask about your excitement in building a world building and also which comes first to you, the character's conflict, which tends to kind of carry us through in a thriller, or the world building itself.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's nice to know that to have you read the novel. But essentially, like the world building and the characters' conflict came to me all at the same time.
Oh,
So I sort of started with an image of Storm Freeman, who's the main character. She's in the Yukon, and you probably remember the scene, or maybe I don't even know if that made it into the book, but she's standing in the Yukon and she's kind of
yes,
looking
there.
south
Yeah.
towards the mountains, this range of mountains, and which are kind of a barrier between her and the world, the society where she wants to be. Because she's been afflicted by the disease that the gatherer brings, she's unable to go back to society, but she has this longing and this sort of loneliness to go and be somewhere else and go and fix once she's done. So I had that conflict came right away. I didn't know the specifics of it, but it came right away at the same time as that sort of that image of the mountain range and that feeling of being isolated and just very remote out in nature.
Well, she wants to help people too, right? Because she runs into the boy, and yeah, she's immediately drawn to helping him.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of her. I mean, the reason she invented the gather in the first place is because she wanted to solve a problem and sort of save the world. She wanted to bring infinite energy to the world and, relieve a lot of the burden of sort of the environmental burden and the geopolitical burden and just take that away from the world and just make it a more peaceful place. So that's sort of her nature.
Yeah.
So when she goes out and creates all this damage that she has to fix. That's so why it's so difficult for her to see that happening.
You can feel that, it wasn't quite as she wasn't anything like she planned. So yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. When again, that whole theme of technology, Ron, when you're trying to, put something good out into the world and then it has all these unintended consequences, which of course has happened many times in human history.
Ramifications, yes, throughout human history, and we're experiencing it in spades right now. I mean, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. And we just keep on doing it. It just seems to be part of human nature that
yeah,
no matter how long we're around, we just keep creating. Well, it's part of human nature to create, but we don't necessarily always think it through, right?
yeah. We don't rein it in. I mean, we learned
Yes.
nothing from Mary Shelley. We're just gonna go ahead and go. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
and
yeah,
I do think that it makes this series, especially relevant and your work relevant because I do think that we have a lot of anxiety with AI right now and what kind of consciousness that's going to have and how will that shift and how will it impact our lives long term. And so, yeah, people can relate because they can feel that.
Oh, absolutely. And AI especially is so like really in our faces right now too. It's not something that's sort of, off in the distance that we may or may not have to deal with. Like it's in front of us. It's
Yeah.
part of our everyday life, right? So it's yeah, very, very relevant at this point.
Yeah, you can't really
Yeah.
escape it. Which is interesting in comparison to your book too, because these people are so much influenced by the gatherer. They can't, you have the protesters and, but they can't really escape it either, it feels like. Um, okay, so can I shift to your main character for a second?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You have a really decisive main character in Maria who kind of jumpstarts the whole, central conflict in your novel. And you have that struggling one in Storm. So, what inspired you to create a character who is struggling so deeply with a moral dilemma and an emotional one too that impacts the entire world?
Yeah, I mean, she came to me pretty fully formed in terms of who she was and what had happened to her. And I mean, I think it's probably because I've always had this fascination with technology gone wrong, with, whether it's like the atomic bomb or DDT or pesticides or even the internet or social media, all these things that humans create that bring these consequences that are not necessarily good. And I always wondered, like, what would it be like to be that person? Like, what if you had invented something that was supposed to be so great and solve all these problems, and then it does really bad things?
Yeah.
And then where would that leave you? Would you want to go out and fix it? Like some people, like Storm, wants to redeem herself and fix it. Whereas other people would just, it wouldn't be their responsibility. They'd just be thinking, it's gone, I've created it, it's out in the world, it's not my problem anymore. So, there's many different ways that situation could have gone, but definitely for Storm, she, really has this deep need to go and fix what she does because I mean, the reason she created it in the first place was to save the world, was to do this really amazing thing that would change the world from here on out. And then it doesn't go that way at all. And so she's just tortured and just really, and especially because she herself has been affected by it, like
Yeah.
physically,
Yeah, she has. She
and she
is.
will. It's on very much a sort of a global scale, but also on a very personal scale as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you were explaining Storm's character, I was like, but if you invented it, wouldn't you feel bad about it? And no, not everyone does. We have a lot of creators of innovators that create new technology that don't seem to have any qualms about it at all. And so
Yeah.
it does seem unique to her character. And
Well, yeah, and I find there's so many, inventors or people who are creating things. They're so wrapped up in the act of creation and the need to create something and so connected to their invention as part of their ego and part of themselves that they just can't see the harm it's doing, or they think it's worth the harm for the goodness that it creates, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely true. And I think that's what I like about Storm's character, that, it has that Jurassic Park moment of just because we could, we didn't stop to think if we should. And she she may not have stopped to think of it before shoving it out into the world, but she's certainly thinking about it now. And it's nice to go with her on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And the question is whether she can, though, right? Once your invention is out in the world, do you have the ability or the resources to actually rein it back in? And that's, of course, the
Yeah.
what the challenges she encounters as she goes along.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. But then that makes me ask, your background in electrical engineering, did that play a role in sort of giving her these qualities of having some concern for what she's put out in the world? Or is it just, or maybe more to the point, did it help you create the whole scenario in the first place?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, the thing about one thing I always talk about is I didn't is the fact that our electrical grid is a miracle. Like it's a technological miracle, the electricity network and the
Yeah.
life it allows us to have, right? We take it for granted, like everything, but
Me too.
it is a miracle. And so but it's harming our world, right? But there is that disconnection between, the electricity we're using every day and where it's coming from. So there's certainly that background of, and our relationship with energy is going to keep evolving because we're using more and more and more of it. And so I really wanted to explore that, you know, if you had a device that was going to provide you with this infinite energy and solve all our problems or those problems, then, you know, how would that the gather it brings the energy use and our use and the damage it's created environmentally much closer together. So you can't actually ignore it.
Oh, I think that's great because you're right. We have such a spread out time frame of when we experience the damage. You know, like we just to use AI as an example again, we have these giant footprints that, you know, are having this ecological damage from AI farms and people are some in the area where they are built, they're complaining of noise issues and stuff, but there's the ramifications will be so much larger, but there's such a lag between when we really feel that. I like that you've pushed it together and created more immediacy, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah, and escalated and more immediacy, and just to make people maybe think about it a little bit more. I had a lot of people tell me that after they read the book about how much it really changed how they saw the, you know, even a transformer that on your street, right? To all of a sudden realize, oh wow, this is all around us all the time, kind of thing.
And it's impacting, you know, our lives, our mental health, our bodies. Yeah, for
All
sure.
of it, yeah. And again, most people are not aware.
No, no, they don't think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So going back to world building just a little bit. So you engage readers with the idea of a device that can harness electrical signals. And yet Storm is in the Yukon. And I related to this also as a hiker, which I know that you do as well. Um, Sort of, you know, juxtaposing, to use a fancy word, um, the technological aspect to the absolute beauty of some of these passages that you have of the natural world. Was that intentional? How do you feel about it? Did it help with world building overall, you know, in your process?
Absolutely. I mean, as like you, obviously, I spend a lot of times outdoors, a lot of time hiking, cross country skiing, and I just love, you know, it's there's not a day that goes by that I'm not outside. So that's a really comfortable place for me. Um, but nature, you know, nature is created sort of organically. It's just sort of on its own, doing out its own thing. Whereas technology is very much human creation, right? It's made by humans, it's created by natural resources. So it's almost the exact opposite of nature because nature's just kind of doing its own thing. But we are so involved in any kind of technology, the humans are, that I thought it would be great to bring those two together just to juxtapose the difference between the two of them. So that was very intentional. Um,
And
because
getting us thinking about it, right? Because I don't know about you when you hike, I have no interest in my phone when I hike. Like you can't even get bars of
yeah,
service anyway. And it's wonderful to get disconnected from that. And the vibe outside is way different when you're out
yes.
in the wilderness. So all of those things, kind of shoving them together in the novel, you know, you can go back and forth between the two, and it kind of draws that into greater contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really sort of, like you were saying, the contrast between it. You've got nature, which is very sort of soothing and very relaxing and very calming, but then you've got technology, which is a lot of it is very disruptive to, you know, mental health and, you know, just human existence. So there is, yeah, those definite differences for sure.
Yeah. It demands so much from us, and often that's not exactly healthy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears again.
Okay.
Just because a lot of people I know that watch Blackbird interviews, they themselves are writing series. So could you just tell me a little bit about how you go through the process of recapping your series to make sure that you still stay with your pacing, but make sure that everyone is caught up to speed?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you sent some questions to me earlier, you were asking whether it was easy or not. And I wouldn't say it's easy. I think I was very deliberate about when I was going into the books, especially at the beginning when they're reading one of the later books. And I had to assume they hadn't necessarily read one of the earlier books. But my whole approach was very much just providing information and context when the reader needs it. So it wasn't about it wasn't about sort of putting huge, uh, you know, clumps of juxtaposition or exposition down to explain the whole situation. It's just these tiny little bits of information as they were needed. Because that's what I like as a reader, especially when you're writing thriller or something with a faster
Yeah,
pace.
yeah.
You don't want to go off and have to read
Oh,
several paragraphs. You just want
no.
as much as you need to know to sort of keep the plot going. So I was really intentional about that, just to make sure that it didn't slow down the pace and that everybody needed what they needed to know.
Yeah, and it fits
Um,
the genre because I think that, sometimes in literary work, there are huge sections where narrative slows everything down
yeah.
and intentionally. But I also appreciate a faster pace, and kind of gravitate around the mystery thriller genre. So I think you have just the right amount.
Well, thank you. That's good to know because you never know, right? It's such a hard balance to know how much to
Yeah,
include.
yeah,
Yeah. And so I just really stuck with like the character motivations, character relationships. I had to, of course, explain the gather because otherwise it
yeah.
doesn't make sense. And then also any events that had happened in the earlier books that they absolutely needed to know to understand what was going on. So I did do very as minimal as I could, but you still have to,
You still have to do some.
yeah, yeah, still have to let your reader know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I want to talk about the professional aspects just quickly. You are a successful indie and you do traditional publishing as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I have done both. Yes.
So how do you feel about each? If you have a preference, feel free to say so. If you don't, I get it. But how do you feel about traditional versus indie?
Well, I mean, ultimately, for anyone who's trying to decide, I mean, it's a lot of it is going to be personal choice. It's going to be what your strengths are, what you're comfortable with, what you're looking for in your author career, obviously. My situation was initially I had a three-book deal for the trilogy with an independent publisher in the States, which I guess is where you are. Um, and uh, and so they published the first two books and then they decided to close down the imprint. So then I took all the rights back and that's when I decided to self-publish. So I've kind of done both. If you're going for traditional publishing, one thing is the validation, right? The book world has seen your work, they've accepted you. You sort of get that little boost of the fact that yes, you are a writer and that you can actually produce something people wants
Yeah.
to read. And what I also found too, having done both, is that the when you're traditionally published, it gains you entry into a lot of book promotion and a lot of events and a lot of
Yeah.
activities that are not open to self-published authors, right?
Although
There's much,
that is changing.
yes, I totally agree with you. It is changing, but there still are some things that
Yes.
you can't, you just, and they're not, or it's harder to get in as a self-published author. Perhaps maybe that's the
I
difference now.
think, yeah, and I think just on the logistical level, but then also the networking level, I do think there's still this kind of, you're on this press. I know other people on this press.
Yeah,
I respect the books that come out of there, and then that can automatically open some doors in that way.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
But in
Um,
terms of getting into a library or a bookstore, you can still do so self-publishing.
Yes, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. It's actually more than the networking element that is harder to create self-publishing because especially to find people who are publishing the same thing that you are.
Yeah.
Because if you're with a sort of a smaller press, you're kind of all, publishing the same stuff type of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas self-publishing is,
Yeah.
everybody's doing everything out there. So you have to make a lot more effort to find your people, I think, is what it
Yeah.
comes down to.
The Wild West aspect of it is exciting, though, that people are able to publish something that may not fit into a particular aesthetic for a press.
Oh,
That is
absolutely. And I mean, I think they're both a lot of work. I don't think one is any less work than the other. I think you're just doing
not a
different things.
yeah,
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 absolutely. Yeah. And I think you have a better understanding of the publishing world if you're self-published. Like I think you really, because
yeah.
you do
Because
your
you do it
covers,
all.
you
Yeah,
do it all, right? So you understand the whole thing so much better. You have so much more control. You
yeah,
can really and one thing that I really notice is the speed, right? With traditional publishing, if your book gets accepted, it can be like a
yeah,
couple of years, right?
exactly.
You
Yeah,
know?
I know someone right now waiting 18 months for theirs.
Yeah, yeah. But
Uh,
and when you're self-publishing, you finish your book and it goes to the editor and the beta readers, and you've got your book, and then you can publish it in a day. Like
yeah, you're
it's
like, here it
yeah.
is. It's true.
Yeah. So
It's true. Yeah. And I
yeah.
want to circle back to the validation comment you made because I remember hearing a talk from an indie publisher who just sells an astronomical amount of books, and he's like, I don't need the validation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think that is definitely the place to start, right? Like, if you're not ready and you do need the validation for whatever reason, then
Yeah.
maybe
And
start.
and and I totally agree. And that's why I was sort of saying it all depends on what you're looking
You
for.
had
I
already done
mean,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, but I mean, for an indie author who you're saying was very successful, I mean, selling books is also really good validation too, right? So
Absolutely, it is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just depends on how you want to get your validation, I guess.
I think that's a great way to put it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have one last question. And it's just basically where can people pick up Disentangled when it comes out?
Well, that's kind of a complicated question, and actually it feeds into what we were just talking about, is because I still have an agent, and so I'm most likely going to try and traditionally publish this book first, and in which case it could be an unknown length of time.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't work out, then I would definitely go self-publishing because I already kind of know how to do that. So I can't actually
I
tell you where it's going to be,
I
unfortunately.
love that you have these skill sets, right? Like, if it doesn't work out, your agent goes, takes it on sub, and for whatever reason it's not the right time. You know how to do it.
Yeah, and it's so, I don't know if comforting is the right word, but it just takes so much stress out of it. You're just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's an ex changes your expectations because you just
Yeah.
know that, you've put all this work into this book, but one way or another it will get out into the world.
Yeah, I really love that because the industry is very fickle and often it has nothing to do with the, I mean, usually it has nothing to do with the book at all. So,
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it really takes the power of it just traditional publishing just becomes another sort of tool in your toolbox. It's not the only one, right? And you're not, relying, as you say, on the fickle industry that's, undergoing its own challenges to
really is.
make,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. To throw some sympathy their way. There is a lot of
Oh, absolutely.
in the publishing industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just, having some options and it allows you to just keep moving forward. You don't get stuck because your book's sort of out there on submission somewhere and never coming
Yeah.
back. And
Yeah. Yeah. Which can slow your own process. So I
yeah,
like, yeah, you don't want to be stuck. Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree.
Ah, this has been great.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
That our viewers will enjoy it. So I am going to say thank you very much for coming. And I know that people will want to go and pick up your book.
Well, thank you for the conversation. I feel like we could have gone down many rabbit
So
holes in
I
this
was like, I
conversation.
saw the time and I was like, wow. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much.